The mirror no longer reflects the person I used to know. There stands James Reynolds, 48, with graying hair at the temples, dark circles like someone carrying the weight of decisions I never really made. 20 years managing the same hardware store. 20 years sleeping next to Samantha. 20 years being the father Tyler deserves. A whole life built on foundations of certainties that are now crumbling beneath my feet. It was on an ordinary Saturday that everything changed. While I was closing the metal shutters of the store, I felt that familiar sensation of emptiness, the kind of emptiness that no tool can fix, that no manual explains how to fill. I used to think it was just exhaustion, or the 40s crisis running late. Little did I know that in just a few days, my world would turn upside down. If you've ever felt like you were living someone else's life, keep watching. What I'm about to share will completely change your perspective on desire and identity. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to access more stories like this. Our house in the Boston suburb is exactly as we planned when we got married. 2 floors, 3 bedrooms, a small but well-kept garden. On autumn mornings, the smell of coffee fills the kitchen while I read the newspaper. Samantha prepares Tyler's lunch while discussing his grades with him. The perfect routine, timed to the second. At the store, I arrange shelves, guide employees, help customers find the right screwdriver or the perfect paint for their guest room. James always knows the right tool for the job, they say. If only they knew how out of place I felt in my own skin. On Saturdays, I mow the lawn. On Sundays, we watch the game. A perfectly oiled gear in a machine called Suburban Life. Even that barbecue at Mark's house. Could you give Chris a ride? He's headed in the same direction as you. Mark pointed at the guy leaning by the porch. Tall, with dark hair falling over his eyes, and a simple t-shirt that seemed tailor-made for his body. I swallowed hard and nodded. Throughout the party, I couldn't help but notice those eyes watching me. Intense and curious. I tried to ignore the discomfort, the electricity in the air every time we passed by each other. It had to be my imagination. After all, he was the boyfriend of Mark's daughter, about 20 years younger than me. In the car, the silence was heavy. I asked about college, about his plans. Engineering, second year, big dreams. His answers were polite, but there was something more in his gaze. "Here is fine," he said when we reached an intersection. I stopped the car. When I turned to say goodbye, his eyes pierced mine. "I noticed how you looked at me during the whole party." His voice was low and confident. "I don't know what you're talking about," I replied, feeling my face burn. His hand touched my arm, light as a feather, yet heavy as lead. "Don't worry, James. I felt the same." The chime of the store door rang 3 days later. Chris walked in carrying a list of materials for a college project. My hands trembled as I helped him pick out screws and pieces of wood. "You really know your stuff," he remarked, admiring how precisely I measured what he needed. 30 years working with tools teaches you a thing or two," I answered, trying to keep my voice casual. In the following weeks, his visits became frequent. We talked about books. He had an unexpected passion for Hemingway. We talked about places. I showed him pictures from my trip to Europe before I got married, and he told me about his dream of visiting Japan. On one quiet afternoon, I took him to the back of the store to show him a personal project, an old desk I was restoring. "It's beautiful seeing something regain its true nature," he said, running his fingers over the polished wood. Our eyes met, and for a moment, neither of us could look away. Lying next to Samantha at night, I stared at the ceiling. 20 years of marriage, a life built brick by brick. How could I be feeling something so intense for someone I barely knew? For a man, every time I closed my eyes, I saw Chris's face, heard his laugh, felt the warmth of his presence. "You've been distant lately," Samantha commented during dinner. "Problems at the store?" I lied. For the first time in our marriage, I lied. while looking directly into her eyes. Tyler began to watch me with teenage curiosity. "Dad, you're acting weird," he said while we were watching TV. "You're always checking your phone." Chris's visits to the store didn't go unnoticed. One day, Mark called. "My daughter broke up with Chris," he said casually. "Strange that he's still around, isn't it? Lauren said he's been spending a lot of time at your store." Fear grew inside me, side by side, with a desire I could no longer deny. Every time I tried to push Chris out of my thoughts, he returned even stronger. It was like trying to hold back the ocean with bare hands. It was a typical Saturday at closing time. The sun was setting, painting the sky with orange hues as I finished up the sales reports on the store's computer. I heard the door chime and looked up, ready to announce that we were closing. My heart leapt when I saw Chris standing there, wearing a navy blue t-shirt that highlighted his eyes. "Sorry to show up like this," he said, coming up to the counter. "I know you're closing." I cleared my throat, trying to regain my composure. "Yeah, I'm actually finishing the sales report. Something urgent?" Chris smiled in that way that made my legs weak. "I found this amazing spot a few days ago. I thought you might want to check it out. It's only 15 minutes from here." I should have said no. I should have come up with an excuse involving Samantha, a parent meeting at Tyler's school, anything. Instead, I found myself saying, "What kind of place?" "A nature reserve. There's a little lake, some trails. It's peaceful, especially at the end of the day when everyone's gone." 30 minutes later, I parked my car at the end of a dirt road. Chris had guided me there on his motorcycle. The place was even more beautiful than he had described. Tall pines surrounded a crystal clear lake, and the setting sun turned the water into liquid gold. "Come on, I want to show you my favorite spot," he said, leading me along a narrow trail. We walked in silence. The only sounds were the rustle of leaves under our feet and the occasional chirp of birds returning to their nests. The trail wound through centuries-old trees until we reached a small clearing with a worn wooden bench that offered a perfect view of the lake. "I found this place by accident," Chris explained as he sat down and motioned for me to sit too. "I was just driving aimlessly after breaking up with Lauren. Somehow I ended up here." I sat beside him, keeping a distance that I thought was appropriate. Yet, I could still feel the warmth radiating from his body. The air was scented with pine, damp earth, and something indescribable that might simply have been the scent of autumn. "It's beautiful," I murmured, watching the reflection of pink-tinted clouds dancing on the surface of the lake. "James," his voice was almost a whisper. "Look at me." I slowly turned, meeting his gaze, which held an intensity that left me breathless. The world seemed to fall silent around us. Not even the wind dared disturb that moment. "I can't stop thinking about you," he confessed, his fingers lightly brushing mine on the bench. "I tried. God knows I tried." My breath quickened, and I felt my face heat up. "Chris, this is complicated. I have a family, responsibilities, and I respect that," he replied, his fingers now softly tracing the lines of my hand. "But I also respect what's happening between us, something so real that I can almost touch it." His fingers moved up my arm, sending shivers all over my body. When they reached my face, delicately outlining my jaw, I closed my eyes, unable to resist the sensation. His touch was like both fire and ice at the same time, burning and comforting. "This is crazy," I whispered, even as I instinctively leaned toward him, like a plant reaching for the sun. The first touch of his lips on mine was hesitant, almost reverently so. A kiss so soft it could have been imagined. But then, like a dam, bursting after years of holding back the pressure, something exploded inside me. My hands found his face, his neck, his hair, as we deepened the kiss with a sudden urgency that surprised me. Chris responded with equal passion, his arms wrapping around me, pulling me closer until there was no space between us. The wooden bench creaked under our weight, a faint reminder of where we were. "Someone might see," I murmured against his lips, a final attempt at rationality. He smiled, his eyes darkened with desire. "Nobody comes here at this hour. Besides," he pointed to a rocky formation a few meters ahead, partially hidden by shrubs. "There's a more private spot over there." My mind shouted warnings that my body simply ignored. I followed him, almost in a trance, to the natural shelter among the rocks. There, protected by the vegetation and the twilight that quickly turned into night, Chris kissed me again, this time with an intensity that awakened parts of me I never knew were dormant. His hands found the buttons on my shirt, undoing them one by one with deliberate slowness. With every bit of skin exposed, his lips followed, leaving a trail of fire that made me shiver. The contrast between the cool night air and the warmth of his mouth amplified every sensation. "You're incredible," he whispered against my chest. I dreamed about this moment. My hands, initially hesitant, grew bolder. I explored the contours of his young body through the fabric of his t-shirt, marveling at the firmness of his muscles, so different from the familiar softness of Samantha. When I finally pulled his shirt over his head, the view of his bare torso in the bluish glow of early night almost knocked me off balance. He guided me until my back rested against the smooth surface of a rock. The contrast between the cold stone and the heat of his body pressed against mine sent waves of pleasure down my spine. Our hands explored, discovered, and mapped out territories unknown to us. When his fingers found my belt, I hesitated for just a brief moment. A flash of Samantha, of Tyler, of 20 years of shared life flashed through my mind. But then Chris looked at me, his eyes conveying not only desire but also understanding. "We can stop," he said softly. "Any moment you want." That thought, that kindness, broke my last defenses. "Don't stop," I whispered, pulling him in for another kiss. What followed was a symphony of discovery. Our bodies met, recognized each other on a primal level that went beyond words. Like waves gathering intensity, we moved together in a rhythm that seemed written in the stars starting to dot the night sky. Every touch revealed a new truth about myself. Every sigh carried decades of unrecognized desire. Chris led me confidently and tenderly through this unexplored territory. His hands knew exactly where to touch, where to press, where to caress to bring sensations I had never experienced. It was like learning a foreign language with my body, understanding nuances and meanings that no word could express. When we finally became one, it felt like something in the universe clicked, a piece fitting perfectly into a space I didn't even know was empty. The pleasure built in spirals, each one more intense until it exploded into a kaleidoscope of sensations that left me breathless and transformed. For one glorious moment, suspended in time, there was no past or future. There was no guilt or consequence, just Chris and me. Two bodies intertwined under the starlit sky, as natural as the trees around us, as inevitable as the tide. Coming back to reality was heralded by the vibration of my cell phone. My phone, still in the pocket of my pants tossed, on the grass, was ringing insistently. With trembling fingers, I grabbed it and saw Samantha's name flashing on the screen. Guilt hit me like a punch to the stomach. "Hey," I answered, trying to control my still heaving breath. "James, where are you? I'm making dinner and Tyler asked if we're going to the movies like we promised." Movies. Saturday night. Our family ritual that I had completely forgotten. I looked at Chris, who was quietly getting dressed a few steps away, his face partly hidden in the shadows. "Sorry, I got held up closing the store. I'm on my way home now," I lied, tasting bitterness in my mouth. "Are you okay? Your voice sounds off." "Yeah, just tired. I'll be home in 20 minutes. I hung up and hurriedly started getting dressed, avoiding eye contact with Chris. The weight of what we had done was beginning to bear down on my shoulders. It wasn't just a betrayal to Samantha. It was a full-on implosion of the identity I'd built throughout my adult life. "James." Chris's voice was soft, almost cautious. "Are you okay?" I closed my eyes, unable to face him. How can I be okay? I have a wife, a son, a whole life. "A life you built without truly understanding who you are," he replied, coming closer. "What happened here wasn't a mistake, James. It was honesty." His words cut through me. Honesty. When was the last time I was truly honest with myself? The answer scared me. Maybe never. "I need to go," I finally said, straightening my rumpled clothes. I can't process this right now." Chris nodded, respecting my space, though I could see the hurt in his eyes. "I'm going to get my motorcycle. I can meet you on the main road." The walk back along the trail was silent and tense. Every step pulled me further away from that moment of pure authenticity and back into the life I had meticulously built. A life that now felt like it belonged to someone else. In the car, Chris tried once more. His hand slid over mine on the gear shift. "I can't pretend that this didn't mean anything to me," he said. I abruptly pulled my hand away. That was a mistake. It can't happen again. The flash of pain in his eyes nearly broke me. "It was the most honest moment of your life, James. You know that." I dropped him at the nearest bus stop, promising we'd talk later. A promise we both knew was empty. As he walked away, I felt a part of me leave too. A part that had just awakened only to be immediately buried again. On the way home, I pulled over, unable to keep driving. I rested my forehead on the steering wheel and, for the first time in years, I cried. I soon realized these weren't tears of remorse for what I'd done. They were tears for what I had denied myself all my life. The reflection in the rearview mirror showed a man I barely recognized. Red eyes, disheveled hair, lips still swollen from Chris's kisses. Yet, there was something else there. Something I hadn't seen in a long time. Authenticity. The mask had finally fallen off, even if just for a moment. At home, Samantha immediately noticed something was off. "You look upset," she commented as I took a quick shower before heading out to the movies. "Rough day at the store," I lied again, avoiding her gaze. During the movie, Tyler and Samantha were laughing at a comedy that I barely watched. My mind was miles away, at that bench by the lake, burdened by a revelation I could no longer ignore. In the following days, I threw myself into work. I reorganized inventory, revamped the displays, updated the inventory systems. Anything to keep my mind busy, so I wouldn't think about Chris, so I wouldn't remember the feeling of his lips on mine, of his hands reverently exploring my body. I avoided the store on days when he usually showed up. I stopped obsessively checking my phone for messages. I tried with all my might to return to the life of before, but there was no before anymore. The James that existed before that night by the lake had vanished forever, replaced by a man torn between duty and desire, between the life he built and the life he could have. At night, lying next to Samantha, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder if she sensed the change in me. Sometimes I would catch myself imagining what it would be like to wake up with Chris by my side, free from expectations, free to be who I really was. Those thoughts filled me with both hope and terror. 1 week turned into 2, then 3. Autumn advanced, and with it, the leaves changed color and fell, like parts of me detaching day by day. I had lost weight. Samantha commented on my looser jeans and the dark circles deepening under my eyes. "You should see a doctor," she suggested over breakfast, her forehead creased with worry. "It might be something serious." And it was something serious, but no doctor could diagnose it. No blood test would reveal the profound fracture in my identity, the constant turmoil of thoughts that kept me awake. On an ordinary Tuesday, I stopped at the supermarket to buy milk and bread. I was walking distractedly through the canned goods aisle when I saw him. Chris was there, examining tomato sauce. Labels as if they held the answers to the universe's mysteries. My first instinct was to run, to turn around before he noticed me. But my feet felt rooted to the floor. He looked up as if he sensed my presence. Our eyes met over the canned goods shelves, and the world around disappeared. There were no other customers, no store employees stocking products, no background music, just Chris and me, separated by a few feet and a chasm of social conventions. "James," he simply said, coming closer as if afraid to startle a wild animal. "Chris," I replied, my voice raspier than I intended. "How are you?" "Surviving," he answered with a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And you?" "Good," I automatically lied. "Busy with the store." An awkward silence fell between us. Around us, life continued. Somewhere in a distant aisle, a child cried. The sound system announced a bakery promotion. "I thought maybe you'd changed your number," he finally commented. "Or blocked mine." "No, I just..." The words died in my throat. What could I say? That I was trying to erase the memory of the best night of my life? That every unsent message, every missed call was a little death? Chris nodded, as if my silence conveyed everything he needed to know. He put the tomato sauce in his basket and hinted that he was leaving. "It was good seeing you, James." At that moment, something inside me broke. The dam I had built to hold my true feelings. Wait," I said louder than I intended, drawing curious glances. Chris stopped, his eyes fixed on mine, waiting. "I miss you," I confessed softly, the words escaping before I could stop them. A flash of hope lit up his face. "When can we really talk? I mean, without running away?" I glanced at my watch, calculating. Samantha would be at her yoga class, Tyler at a friend's house. Not now, but I hesitated, knowing I was crossing a line by saying the next words. "Tomorrow, 3 p.m., at Harborview Cafe." "I'll be there," he replied simply. That night, I could barely eat dinner. Samantha and Tyler chatted excitedly about the latest Red Sox game, while I just pushed food around on my plate, rehearsing in my head what I would say to Chris, and whether I should say anything at all. The next day arrived with an unforgiving clarity. The autumn sky was an almost painful blue. Golden leaves danced on the sidewalks, and my heart pounded in my chest as I headed to the cafe at our agreed time. I had told Samantha I needed to check on a special shipment at the store. Another lie added to the mounting pile that threatened to bury our marriage. Chris was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of him. He wore a green flannel shirt that brought out his eyes, his hair a little longer than the last time we met. So young, so full of life and possibility. The exact opposite of how I felt. "I got you an espresso," he said as I sat down. "I remember you said it's your favorite." The fact that he remembered such a small detail hit me hard. How many times had Samantha still ordered a cappuccino for me after 20 years together? "Thanks," I replied, taking a sip to buy some time. "How are you, James? Really?" I stared into the dark surface of my coffee, searching for courage in its bitter depths. "Lost," I finally admitted. "I've never felt so lost in my life." Chris reached his hand over the table, his fingers just inches from mine. He didn't touch me, respecting the invisible boundaries I had set. But the closeness was electrifying. "What happened between us?" he began. That was a mistake. I automatically interrupted, repeating the words I had rehearsed. His eyes narrowed. "Look into my eyes and tell me it was a mistake, James. That it didn't mean anything." I couldn't do it. The words got stuck in my throat. "That's what I'm scared of," he continued, his voice low but intense. "It's not about what you do or don't do. It's about what you really feel, not what you think you should feel." His words hit me like a slap. That was exactly it. I had spent my whole life doing what I thought I was supposed to do, feeling what I thought I should feel. Marriage, a kid, a stable job, a suburban house, the full package of the American dream. I had never stopped to ask if it was what I truly wanted. I have responsibilities, Chris, a family, and they deserve the true version of you, don't you think? Not just a shell, a man living only half a life. What are you suggesting? That I abandon my wife, my son, 20 years of life for what? Chris sighed, leaning back in his chair. I'm not suggesting anything specific, James. I'm not asking you to run off with me into the sunset. I'm just saying you deserve to be honest with them and with yourself. What happens after that honesty? Well, that's another chapter. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the background hum of the cafe filling the space between us. People talked, laughed, and lived their normal lives while my world slowly imploded. I can't promise anything, I finally said. I'm not asking for promises, he replied. I just want you to know that what we shared was real, at least for me. He stood up, tossing a few bills onto the table. The rest is up to you. I watched him walk to the door, every step taking him further away from me. A part of me wanted to run after him, to beg him to stay, to give me time to figure out who I really was. Another part clung desperately to the comfort of the life I knew, to this fear of the unknown. When the door closed behind him, I felt tears slip out and run down my cheeks. There, in an anonymous cafe surrounded by strangers, I allowed myself to cry silently for the first time in decades. They weren't just tears for Chris, or for what might have been. They were tears for the man I'd never allowed myself to be, for the time lost trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. The drive back home felt like the longest of my life. Every traffic light seemed like an opportunity to change direction, to escape to somewhere I could start over. But I knew there was no escape. The only way out was through the truth, no matter how painful it was. I parked in front of our house, staring at it as if for the first time. The perfect white paint, the floral curtains Samantha chose so carefully, Tyler's bike tossed on the lawn. A picture-perfect scene, the embodiment of the American dream. My heart clenched at the thought of shattering that image. When I went inside, Samantha was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The familiar aroma of beef stew filled the air, mixed with the floral scent of her favorite perfume. For a moment, I just stood in the doorway, taking in every detail. The way she hummed softly while chopping vegetables, her hair tied up in a messy bun, the worn slippers she refused to replace. James, she asked, noticing my presence. I didn't hear you come in. Are you okay? I couldn't answer. The words got stuck in my throat. She put down the knife and came over, worry plain on her face. You look pale. Was there something wrong at the store? How could I tell her? How could I explain that the man who had shared 20 years of bed, the father of her child, wasn't who she thought he was? Wasn't who I even thought I was until just a few weeks ago. We need to talk, I managed to say at last. Her face paled. Those 3 words, so simple, carried the weight of thousands of hard conversations throughout human history. Is it another woman? She asked directly, as practical as ever, even in pain. A humorless laugh escaped my lips. No, Sam, it's not another woman. Then what? Are you sick? Is that why you've been so distant? I led her to the kitchen table and we sat down. Her hands, always warm, were cold when I took them in mine. I'm not sick, not physically anyway, but something has changed in me. Something I can't ignore or pretend doesn't exist anymore. As I searched for the right words, I looked out the kitchen window. The sun was setting, painting the sky with the same colors as that day by the lake with Chris. The memory brought not only desire but clarity. The clarity that, regardless of the future of my marriage or any relationship with Chris, I needed to start living honestly. Sam, For 20 years, I've been the husband I thought I should be, the father Tyler deserved, the man everyone expected me to be. I checked all the boxes for the perfect life. I paused, gathering nerve, but in the process, I lost something essential. I lost myself. Her eyes filled with tears. What are you trying to say, James? I took a deep breath. I'm trying to say I don't know who I am anymore, Sam. That there are parts of me I never explored. Desires I never acknowledged. Truths I never faced. What parts? What desires? She insisted, her voice trembling. I looked her straight, in the eyes, the same eyes that watched me say I do on our wedding day, that sparkled with joy when Tyler was born, that always reflected unconditional love even in the hardest times. I think I've always known on some level that I'm attracted to men. The words hung in the air between us, impossible to take back. I saw shock on her face, quickly followed by confusion and then pain. Is this new? How long have you known? I think I've always known, I guess, but I buried it so deep that I didn't even recognize it. Until now. I didn't mention Chris specifically. There would be time for those details, if she wanted to know. In that moment, the bigger truth was enough. Are you leaving me? She asked, tears now freely rolling down her cheeks. I don't know what I'm doing, Sam. I only know that I can't live in lies anymore. Lies for you, for Tyler, for myself. I squeezed her hands. You two are the most important people in my life. I never meant to cause pain, but continuing like this, it will slowly destroy us. The silence that followed was the deepest we had ever experienced. 20 years of memories hung between us. Birthdays, vacations, fights, makeup, the birth of our son, the dreams we built together. I need time, she finally said, pulling her hands away, to process this. I know, and you'll have all the time you need. I can stay in the guest room or… No, she interrupted, wiping her tears. This is your home too. We're not going to make any hasty decisions. Her strength always impressed me, even now, after I'd shattered the very foundation of her life. What are we going to tell Tyler? I asked. The truth, when we're ready. He deserves that. That night, lying alone in the guest room, staring at an unfamiliar ceiling, I felt a strange mix of pain and relief. The pain of knowing I had hurt the woman who had loved me unconditionally for 2 decades. The relief of finally allowing myself to be who I truly am. I didn't know what the future held. If there would be a place for Chris in it. If Samantha and I would find a new way of living. If Tyler would understand. But for the first time in many years, I felt truly present in my own life. Not just a bystander playing a designated role. As sleep finally overtook me, I realized our existence is a series of choices. Not just the big ones about who to love or which career to follow, but the small daily choices of honesty or deceit, of courage or conformity. For so long, I chose the safe, expected, acceptable path. Now I was choosing the truth, as frightening as it was. And in that choice, despite the pain it caused, I found a freedom I never knew existed. The freedom to be authentically James Reynolds, an imperfect, confused man who was finally honest with himself and the world. If you've ever felt trapped in a life that doesn't entirely feel like your own, know that you are not alone. Millions of us wear masks, play roles, follow scripts written by others. But the real courage lies in taking those masks off, even when the face we find underneath scares us, because only in authenticity can we find the peace we have been looking for. This is just one part of my journey of self-discovery. If it touched something in you, subscribe to follow the next chapters of this evolving story. After all, we all deserve to live our truth, no matter how late we come to realize it. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to access more stories like this.